Found my fiancé's secret second phone after his late work nights. I never thought I'd be the woman writing one of these. I've read these in bed with a cup of tea and a cat purring at my feet, chewing my lip over strangers' pain and repeating communicate, communicate like that's a spell that fixes everything. I considered myself reasonable. I considered my life stable. I thought I knew him. God, I really thought I knew him. Tuesday night started like any normal Tuesday. I left work around 5, humming a random song, because the sky was unusually bright for November, and I just found cheap tulips at the corner market. Sunset orange, like tiny torches. I bought them for no real reason, just because they made me happy and because I thought he'd smile when he saw them. I stopped by our apartment building, 3rd floor, 2-bedroom with exposed brick that I fell in love with even though it's drafty in winter, and mailed a bill in the lobby slot. Mrs. Delgado from 3B waved at me with her grocery bags and her eternal floral perfume. We chatted about her new grandbaby in Florida. Normal. Warm. The kind of day you forget to be grateful for because it was so easy. The tulips sat in the sink while I looked for a vase. We have 3, I always forget where I've put them. And I texted him. Heading home. Want me to start pasta? He was supposed to be late again. He manages projects at a marketing firm, and the big campaign had begun devouring our schedule about a month ago. Don't wait up had become a refrain, said with a kiss to my forehead and a tired smile that somehow still made me want to tuck him into my collarbone. He texted back. Long night. Don't cook for me. Grab something easy. Then a heart emoji. Then, I'll make it up to you this weekend. I set the tulips by the window in the black vase with the tiny crack near the base and boiled water for myself. I ate a bowl of spaghetti with jarred sauce and too much Parmesan and watched an episode of some baking show while I folded laundry. Living small, the two of us, surrounded by things that matched because we picked them out together. We argued about the couch once, but we laughed about it later and called the couch the mediator. We were engaged 8 months until the wedding, and he had called me future Mrs. My last name hyphenated with his, since the day he proposed in that little park with the fountain where kids always throw coins. I honestly couldn't believe how lucky I was. After dinner, I swept up some dried basil that had jumped ship, planned a rough grocery list, we are always out of eggs, and went to bed with a book. He still wasn't home by 11:30, then midnight. Not unusual lately. I placed my phone face down on the nightstand and tried to read a chapter. I scrolled a little. I told myself a million very grown-up things that all meant, don't be clingy. I put on an eye mask and felt for the warm shape of his body on his pillow, like it might appear if I wished hard enough. Back up a few months. The red flags didn't arrive waving. They were more like stray threads you only notice when your sweater snags on something. 1 or 2 missed date nights that made sense. A dinner with clients that turned into drinks. A new gym bag that lived in his trunk because he said work had showers and he was saving time. I didn't think twice when he'd say, we've got a deadline, because deadlines are real, and I've missed my own. But then he started treating his phone like a hot coal, turning it face down, leaving it in his coat pocket when he used to leave it on the coffee table. The first time I teased him, you hiding state secrets? He laughed and said, only your Christmas present. Another thread, cologne that wasn't his. Not a lot, not obvious. It reminded me of cedar and black pepper, a scent that clung to him like a second shirt, lifting off when he hung his suit jacket by the door. The first time I smelled it, I thought it was a new office diffuser. He joked that one of the interns wore too much. He's basically marinating us all, he smirked. And I filed it under workplace hazards. And then there were the late work nights, and my chest started to learn a new rhythm for waiting. It's amazing how quickly your body can memorize absence, how quickly it becomes its own routine. Brushing your teeth slower because there's no one to bump the sink with. Checking your phone just to check until your eyes cross. Putting his pillow over your stomach because the weight calms you like a child with a stuffed animal. I counted tiles on the bathroom floor while brushing my teeth. I started to notice his silence more than his speech. I told myself I trusted him. That I am not my ex-boyfriend from college who laid in my face about a study group while the smell of beer seeped through his hoodie. That it is okay for a grown man to have a career he's passionate about. I told myself I am not paranoid. I told myself paranoia wears the same clothes as intuition, and that makes it unfair to judge. The thing that cracked it wasn't even him. It was a small noise in a coat pocket. It was Thursday night, not Tuesday, and rain was building somewhere far away, because our city smelled like metal and wet leaves. He had come home earlier than expected, around 9:30, with a plastic bag of discount sushi and a grin that said "surprise" in all capitals. He kissed my neck in the kitchen and said, "I can't stay long. We're doing inventory overnight." The sushi tasted good and cold, and I felt the shape of relief in my throat when he took a break from the keyboard and sat with me, thighs touching, while we watched half of a noir movie he loves. He left his coat draped over the back of the dining chair. His phone buzzed on the coffee table twice, once with a coworker's name I didn't recognize, then with his mother, which he ignored. He slipped out at 10:30 with a whisper, "Lock up, okay? I love you." I washed dishes slowly, like a ritual, letting the water run hot and the steam lift my bangs. I was wiping the counter when I heard it, a faint chirp, high, brief, almost like a bird. It came again, not his phone on the coffee table, but something else, muted by fabric. I could have ignored it. I could have pretended it was a neighbor's gadget. Instead, my feet moved. The chirp came from his coat. I reached into the right pocket. Receipts, a pen, a stick of gum. My fingers grazed the left pocket. The chirp again. Insistent, timed, like someone impatiently tapping their foot. I pulled out a phone. Not his phone. A small, older model with a matte black case. I held it like it weighed nothing, like touching it might burn me. I was very, very still for a long moment. The apartment felt steamed, like a bathroom after a shower. The TV was paused on a freeze frame of a man in shadows. His cigarette glowed like a tiny warning light. I heard my heartbeat like it had moved into my ears. I know what people will say. You should have put it back. You should have asked him. You should have waited till morning. You should have respected privacy. Maybe you're reading this and thinking that's not a war drum. It's an alarm. I want you to know there are versions of me in other universes who did put it back, who tied a pretty bow around their own denial and slept like babies. That was not the version who took the phone into the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of our bed like a defendant waiting to hear the verdict. The phone wasn't locked. That detail keeps circling back around my brain because it feels almost merciful, like the only kind thing he did in all this was not make me guess the shape of the knife. There was no facial recognition, no passcode, just a swipe up like it had been used by someone who needed quick access. The battery was at 13%. The home screen was a picture of a shoreline at dusk, the generic kind that comes preloaded. No apps I recognized except messages, phone, and something called Ledger. I tapped messages. The top thread had no contact name, just a heart and a peach emoji next to a phone number. The last message, 3 minutes earlier, said, "You leaving yet?" Then, a photo, cropped at the shoulder, of a wine glass lifted toward the camera. I scrolled up. The history went back months, names that were not mine, places that were not our city, pet names that tasted like chalk in my mouth. Babe, honey, you free tonight? I'll book us. I miss your hands. It was all there, like a play being performed with the stage lights on. Like I could see the wires and still couldn't believe the actors were real. There were details, little ones, that you don't notice until they're strung together, and suddenly they're a necklace you can't take off. A mention of the usual room at a hotel downtown. A photo of a breakfast tray with 2 coffee cups and his watch in the corner. A complaint about a red-headed receptionist who was nosy. A screenshot of an appointment reminder from a spa with his first name spelled wrong. He joked about it. He had sent a picture of his chest, his necklace, the one I bought him on our 1-year anniversary. His mouth smiling. Not explicit, but intimate in a way that made the room tilt. And then, buried in a thread from 2 weeks ago, the line I still see when I blink. "She's busy with wedding stuff. It's fine." I don't remember standing up. I remember the floor feeling like an ocean. I remember the tulips against the window, heads slightly bowed, their petals deeper in the evening. I remember sitting back down because my knees felt like negative space. I scrolled more. Doomed. Because once you open the door and find the wolf, you keep counting teeth. The Ledger app. I don't know why I opened it. Curiosity or cruelty. It was tidy. Double columns, payments, dates, asterisks next to hotel names, agent, room, flowers. I recognized one florist, the same one we used for our engagement party, the same exact receipt template. My stomach lurched. I could smell that cedar pepper cologne like it had seeped into the pillowcase. His schedule, his inventory nights, his deadline, mapped perfectly to the days he was apparently busy making memories with someone else. Some entries had hearts next to them. Little hearts where our life lived. He was one of those detailed types, which made him good at his job and very efficient at betrayal. I texted him. My hands were shaking hard enough that I had to backspace twice. I wrote, "Hey, everything okay?" He responded, "Yeah, in the weeds. You good?" The phone in my lap felt like it might detonate. I typed, "I found a phone in your coat." My screen showed those 3 dots within seconds, then nothing. Then, "What phone?" Then, "I can explain." Then a call. I didn't pick up. I watched it ring out and stared at the ceiling like maybe if I could see the structure of our building, I'd understand how things collapse. He texted again, "Please wait for me. 20 minutes. 20 minutes is not long, unless you're trapped in the moment your life rewrites itself." I walked around the apartment like it had become a museum of a life I no longer lived. The candles on the coffee table that we bought at the flea market, the photo strip from the state fair where we looked like idiots with cotton candy, the whiteboard by the fridge that said groceries, eggs, olive oil, toilet paper, wedding binder with a smiley face he had drawn, the eyes as little hearts. I took one slow sip of whiskey because my hands wouldn't stop trembling and I wanted to anchor them to something. I sat on the floor with my back against the bed because sitting on the bed felt like a betrayal of my own body. He arrived in 22 minutes. I know because I watched the digits change. His key scraped the lock like he had never opened our door before. He walked in and looked at me like he'd tripped into an alternate universe. He had the sense to close the door quietly. "What is this?" I asked. No screaming, no crying yet. My voice was a stranger trying on my mouth. He looked at the phone like it was a snake that had curled up in our linen closet. "I can explain," he said again, like it was a line he'd been practicing in a mirror. He reached for the phone. I pulled it back. We stood like that for a second, less than a foot apart, and the space between us felt like a canyon carved by a river I'd never noticed. "Explain then," I said. And here is where I tell you that he didn't confess to a one-time mistake. He didn't fold himself at my feet and cry into my jeans. He didn't even sit. He stayed standing, hands in his hair, rubbing at his scalp like if he pressed hard enough, he could massage out a better answer. "It's not what you think," he said, and the ceiling fan should have fallen just to give us a different soundtrack. "What do I think?" I asked. "You think that I'm cheating." He looked at me only long enough to check the temperature of my eyes. "You are," I said. "You have been, for months." The quiet made it louder. The word months landed like a book you drop from a height. It sounded silly to be so precise when he'd just been sloppy with my heart. He sat then, on the chair with his coat. He ran a hand over his mouth. He looked like I had looked, the stillness before. "It started after the promotions," he said. "I was working late, I was stressed, He took a breath like he was about to dive. "I met someone in the lobby. Actually, I met her before that at a conference. Nothing happened, we just talked. She gets my work, we clicked. It was, I don't know, easy. I didn't plan it." My hands were suddenly very calm. I remember noticing that. I placed the phone on the coffee table between us as if it was something we were both responsible for. "The ledger," I said. "The hotels, the payments." His eyes flicked to the phone. He didn't reach for it. "I wanted to keep our accounts separate," he said. "I didn't want anything to show up on statements. I was going to end it." I said I was going to end it. He looked at me like he wanted me to confirm that thinking about ending a thing is the same as ending it. "Why the second phone?" I asked. "So I could cut it off clean." He said it like a question. "So you could keep doing it without me finding out," I corrected, feeling a little heat finally, the kind that warms instead of burning. "How long?" He rubbed his forehead. 10 months? It sounded like a guess. 10 months is longer than the entire time we've been engaged. 10 months is a season and a half. 10 months is enough to learn someone's coffee order and the way they like their toast. "Do I know her?" I asked because I wanted to locate this in the world, because a general betrayal is worse than a specific one. "She doesn't live here," he said. "Do you love her?" I asked, because words have edges and I wanted to cut something with one. He stared at the tulips for so long I could feel my heartbeat in my throat again. I don't know, he whispered. I love you. Those aren't the same thing, I said. We both sat there, not touching, while the room watched us. The rain finally arrived, tapping the windows. It should have felt like a scene in a movie, but it felt like a regular night that had been hollowed out. He said more things. He said, I'm sorry, and I'm trash, and I'm an idiot, and he said my name the way you say someone's name when you're trying to coax them from a ledge. He said he had almost told me 3 times. He said he thought about what it would do to me and to my mother and to the wedding and to our plans, and then he thought about her and the quiet he felt when she was around. He said, it was stupid, and as he said it, I could see him believing both sides of himself. The man who couldn't imagine hurting me and the man who had done it by living it every day. Did you use protection? I asked. Because my body lives in the real world where consequences aren't poetic. Yes, always, he said so fast, which made me think of all the times he had moved slowly with me. The mornings we had kissed our way to coffee, the nights we had laughed about nothing under the blanket of knowing we were safe in whatever we had made. I didn't know if he was telling the truth. The words were a nudge more than a comfort. I thought about tests, doctors, the million tiny, unromantic realities of being a person in a body someone else can endanger with their choices. I added clinic to the grocery list in my head and felt very old and very young. Do you want to marry me? I asked, finally, because what else was it all about, if not that? He looked at the ring on my finger like it was an exam he had failed and set on a shelf to admire the shape of failure. His face did something I won't be able to describe to my mother without breaking into pieces. He looked at me. He looked at the door. He looked at his hands. He looked like he wanted a trapdoor in our nice hardwood floor. I want to, he said. There it was, the first honest sentence of the night. I stood up because sitting felt like complicity. I picked up his coat and handed it to him. It was kind and it was unkind. You can't stay here tonight, I said. He nodded like this was a word he expected to one day hear. Where will you, he started and then stopped, realizing I was in my apartment and he was the one packing his mouth with apologies like cotton to stop the bleeding. He took his keys. He took the second phone and put it in his pocket, like he didn't trust me not to fling it off the balcony. He paused at the door. I love you, he said again, small, like a child learning the word. I stared at the tulips until the door clicked. I texted my cousin because she is the person I text when I'm bleeding but want to act like I'm not. She called instantly. I didn't pick up. I couldn't explain, not yet. I walked to the kitchen, drank water, set the glass down, picked it up, and drank more because the act of drinking felt like a thing I could control. I took a shower so hot my skin flushed and scrubbed behind my ears like guilt lived there. I sat on the bathroom floor in my towel and stared at the grout lines like they might spell out instructions. I got dressed and climbed into our bed and turned on the fan because silence is heavy when you've been holding your breath and find out it's been for nothing. I didn't sleep. I saw everything like it was projected on the ceiling. The messages, the breakfasts, the ledger with hearts. I thought about our wedding invitations sitting in a neat box in the closet. I thought about deposits we may not get back. I thought about my mom's face when I tell her, about the way she will call him that boy, like he's a stray we fed and let inside and now he's peeing on the rug. I thought about telling my friends and how one of them will say, I never liked him, because someone always says that, and I will resist the urge to dissect every conversation we've ever had for evidence of this. I thought about midday at work, trying to type while my insides are rearranging themselves. I thought about the fairness of it all, and how fairness is a ghost story we tell small children when we tuck them in. I cleaned the fridge at 3 a.m. I took out the old condiments and sniffed them like a sommelier of chaos. I stuck Post-its on things. Toss, keep, who knows. I answered emails from weeks ago like I was someone else, the kind of woman who does not let her inbox get the best of her. I Googled what to do when your fiancé cheats and closed the tab because reading other people's checklists felt both comforting and nauseating. I set his ring, simple, silver, on the coffee table next to the phone he had left for years and the one that had showed up like a confession. I sat by the window and watched the city wake up, and in that weird gray space between last night and this morning, I decided on small things. I would go to the clinic. I would call Rhea, my cousin. I would text our wedding planner and ask about the deposit timelines like I was asking about someone else's party. I would pack him a bag with his essentials and set it by the door because his presence in our drawers felt like my skin had a rash. When the sun started making the brick across the street look like it had been rubbed with gold leaf, my phone buzzed. Him. Can we talk tonight? Can we try therapy? I will do anything. A second text. I messed up. I messed up. I am sorry. A third I didn't have the heart to read because the smell of coffee, mine because habits keep you alive, was starting to fill the apartment and I didn't want to let the scent of apology overtake it. I called Rhea. I told her everything, in pieces, like the story was a necklace spilling off a dresser into knotted loops. She listened. She didn't say I always knew. She didn't say men are trash, though I could hear the urge in the way she took a breath. Instead, she said, "You are not stupid. You loved him with the information you had. That's not stupid, that's normal. Then, what do you need right now?" I told her I didn't know. I cried for the first time, leaned over the sink like I was getting rid of something toxic. And she stayed on the line through that too. We made a plan. She would come after work. We would order dumplings. We would at some point laugh at something stupid because we always do. We would look at the calendar and decide what to do about December and January. And the other months we've always believed in. I texted my boss and said I had a personal emergency. He responded, "Take the time you need." I loved him for that kindness and also hated that it made me cry again. I went into the bedroom and looked at our bed, which had not moved and had not done anything wrong, and I smoothed the quilt like it might choose a side. I pulled the wedding binder off the shelf and stared at it for a long time. It's ridiculous how heavy a piece of paper can feel when it says a date you've been planning your days around. I almost threw it, but instead I opened to a random page and found the swatches of the bridesmaids' dresses. I pressed one between my fingers just to feel something soft and definite. By noon, I had a list. By noon, I had eaten a piece of toast because hunger comes even when your heart is in pieces. By noon, I had changed into jeans and a sweater, tied my hair back, and put on mascara because I had an appointment at the clinic, and the act of putting on mascara felt like proof that my face still belonged to me. I left the apartment and the hallway smelled like someone's lunch, onions and butter and thyme. Mrs. Delgado was coming up the stairs and she asked me, "You okay, mija?" I said yes, because sometimes a no is too big to say to someone who has keys in one hand and her life in the other. The clinic was clean and efficient and nobody judged me. The nurse gave me a pamphlet and said, "You're doing the right thing taking care of yourself." She didn't know she had steadied me. I walked home slowly the long way, past the park where he proposed. The fountain was off for winter. I imagined coins at the bottom even without water. Wishes sitting there in the cold. A child in a yellow coat ran past me with a dinosaur toy screaming, "Rawr!" And I thought about future children I might never have with him. About the little family I had drawn on graph paper like it was math. Back home, I opened the closet and pulled down the box with our invitations. They are beautiful. My best friend's calligraphy. A soft off-white, our names, like a promise that had meant something when we sent the proof to print. I lifted one out and felt the edge. I didn't tear it. I put it back. I don't know why. Maybe I'm saving the tearing for when my cousin arrives, and we can turn it into a ceremony, tearing paper to the rhythm of laughter and tears, using the scraps for grocery lists so that we can write our practical lives over the top of would-have-beens. He texted again, "I'm outside, can we talk?" I didn't respond. I looked through the peephole and saw him in his blue jacket, the one we bought together, shuffling his feet like he was waiting for the principal. He didn't knock. He just stood there. I thought about opening the door. I thought about the second phone and the ledger and the words, "I want to." I thought about how even his silhouette, which would have made me ache 2 days ago, made my chest feel like it was full of damp ash. I texted him, "Ria's here at 6. Not tonight." There was a pause, then, "Okay, I'll check into a hotel. Please remember to eat." The part of me that still loves him almost laughed because "please remember to eat" is something I used to text him when he'd get lost in work, as if food could patch holes deeper than hunger. I stared at the door until I heard his footsteps fade, and then I went into the kitchen and ate a handful of almonds like a dare. It's late afternoon now. The tulips have opened more, their throats visible. The sky has done that shift from light to almost light that November owns. I have his things in a bag by the door. I have my things, my heart and my trust and my anger scattered everywhere, like confetti someone forgot to sweep up. I'm trying to write this because putting it in order makes me feel like I can survive it. It doesn't feel real. It feels like I stepped into a parallel timeline where all the bad versions of the conversation I thought we would never have had already happened. I know there are logistics, canceling vendors, changing names on reservations, telling people. I know there are therapist numbers open on my browser tab. I know I need to call my mother. I'm not ready to hear her say my name the way she will say it when I tell her. I'm not ready to practice the new story of myself, a woman who did not end up marrying the man she built a home with. Small details keep snagging me. His coffee mug in the sink from last night. The pair of socks I rescued from under the couch because he never looks there. The dent on his pillow where my head accidentally rested last night when I was too tired to move. The knowledge that the world doesn't end when something fundamental breaks. It just keeps turning and expects you to climb back on. The realization that I probably posted a photo 3 days ago of our cozy Sunday on Instagram while his second phone was in his pocket like a heartbeat that had nothing to do with me. Maybe there's more conversation coming. Maybe he'll seep into my inbox with the link to a couples therapist and a list of reasons he didn't mean what he absolutely did mean with his actions. Maybe I will walk with him along the river like we planned for Saturday, and we will talk until our feet ache and the sky goes purple, and I will hear him say the sentence I wanted last night. I choose you. Maybe he'll say it and I'll feel nothing. Maybe I'll feel everything and still know it's the wrong choice. It is unbearable to live in maybe. And yet here I am, curled up on it like a pet bed, because jumping to certainty feels like trying to fly. I guess I'm writing because I want to not just scream. I want to know, how do you hold both, the part of you that wants to throw his clothes into the hallway and the part that remembers the way he made you tea when you had the flu? How do you keep dignity when your heart wants to bargain with itself? How do you protect yourself without turning into someone you don't recognize? Is there a right first step besides standing still and breathing through panic? Is it okay that I don't know the answer to whether we are over? Does that make me weak? Strong? Just human? Ria will be here soon. We will sit on the floor and eat dumplings, and she will tell me a story about the time she knocked over a display at the drugstore because she's made of chaos and light, and I will laugh even though it will hurt. We will open the binder and cross out a line. Or we won't. We'll leave it alone because sometimes the mercy is in letting a thing still believe in itself for a day longer. I'll turn my phone to Do Not Disturb so I don't watch his words appear. I will water the tulips because I bought them for a normal Tuesday and they are still beautiful today too. It's strange. Right now, even as my chest feels scraped out, I can imagine a version of the woman I will be 6 months from now. She will know things I don't. She will have a new morning routine. She will have her keys on a different hook. She will not flinch when a phone buzzes. She will look back at this version of me with a kind of compassion and embarrassment and pride. She will remember sitting on this floor and writing to strangers like they are friends. And she will want to reach back through time and say, "You will be okay. Not today, but one day." The door buzzer just went. It's probably Rhea. I'm going to take a deep breath, pick up the bag by the door, and figure out how to open my mouth without letting out a sound that only dogs can hear. TLDR. Found a secret second phone in my fiancé's coat. Read messages confirming a months-long affair. Confronted him. He admitted it and said, "I want to marry you." And now I'm shattered and deciding what to do next.